Hello, welcome back to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen, and today I'm going to be sharing some bingeable series with you. Okay, so the first series I want to recommend is the Goldrush Ranch series by Elsie Silver, and I've got the first book in the series here. It's Off to the Races. Now there's a 4-book series. The first book is Off to the Races, and then we have Photo Finish, Front Runner and False Star, and this is Elsie's first series. It's a small town romance set around a horse ranch, and basically it's about horse racing. So we have a variety of characters in here, ranging from ranch owners to jockeys to vets and to trainers. This is a massively bingeable series. So Elsie Silver has got very popular lately, and her Chestnut Springs series is doing extremely well. But like I said, this is her first one, and I like to read things in order. So once I heard about how good Elsie Silver's books were, I decided to pick up this book, Off to the Races, as the first one. And I took it on holiday with me, and I was actually on holiday in Las Vegas. So this was not even a beach holiday. This was Las Vegas, where lots of things were going on. But I was lucky enough to be there for a week, and so I took some reading with me, and this was one of them. This series was so bingeable though that I read all 4 books in the series while I was on holiday in Las Vegas. That's how good this series is. And I rated all of the books in this series either 4 or 5 stars. And all of the characters I just think are absolutely wonderful. And not only that, there's some great animals in this series. So if you're an animal lover, you'll absolutely love the animals in this. There is one of the main characters is a horse called Dee Dee, and Dee Dee absolutely steals the show. Now unfortunately for me, I'm allergic to horses, so I would never have a horse, as I would never be able to own and ride a horse. But if I was to ever want to own and ride a horse, and I could afford it, because Dee Dee would probably be pretty expensive, Dee Dee would be the horse for me. Totally steals the show. And later on there's a fantastic dog as well in one of the books that is also a showstopper as well for me. So Elsie not only writes really great stories with humans, but also has some very heartwarming stories about animals as well. So I would highly recommend. Now my favourite in the series is Photo Finish. This features Violet and Cole. Violet is basically a stable hand, someone helping the trainer, but becomes a jockey in this. So basically training to be a jockey, becomes Dee Dee's jockey. And she's also the sister of the brothers from Chestnut Springs, which is the second series. So we absolutely love Violet. She is a very petite lady, but full of absolutely fun and fire. And she definitely gives Cole a run for his money. Now, Cole is definitely a grump. He has had some trauma in his past, and he's also an ex-soldier, and he's hiding a secret basically. So I really love this because I absolutely have a soft spot for a scarred hero. Beauty and the Beast is my favourite retelling, so my soft spot is definitely with the scarred heroes, and Cole is not facially scarred, but is definitely emotionally and physically scarred in other ways. And so I absolutely love how he softens towards Violet and how their relationship develops through that book. So like I say, that is my absolute favourite, but I highly recommend you read the whole series. Once you start, you're not going to want to get off the horse on this one. So the next one I want to recommend is a Mafia romance series, and it is Queens and Monsters by J.T. Geissinger, and I've got the first book here, which is Ruthless Creatures. Now this is also a 4-book series, and I rated all of the books in this one 4 and 5 stars. And again, I read these on holiday. This time I took them on a beach holiday with me, and I literally devoured them all in just a couple of days. So this series is 4 books, like I said. It's Ruthless Creatures, then we have Carnal Urges, Savage Hearts and Brutal Vows. And every single one of these books is absolutely fantastic. In fact, so much so that I not only read these in physical copy while I was on holiday, but I've also got them in audiobooks and reread them all at the start of this year. as audiobooks, and the audiobooks are amazing. Now, when I first read this book, because I am a very strict star rater, I gave all of the books in this series 4 stars apart from the last one. But then when I heard the audiobooks, and Troy Duran in particular, his narration of all of these male characters is absolute perfection. I was like, what was I thinking? This is absolutely a 5-star book, and I think it's actually my favourite of the series. So this one is the first book. It's the first and fourth book are my favourites, but I think this is actually my favourite hero. I absolutely love Cage, and in this one we're following Cage and Natalie, and Cage is a Russian mafia person. He's kind of the enforcer, and he ends up in Natalie's path because her ex-fiance stole some money from the mafia, and Cage has been sent to collect, and so that's where the series kicks off. But this is absolutely a fantastic series overall. Would highly recommend all 4 books, and you do need to read these in order. Then, sticking with the Mafia theme, I basically have to say Mafia Wars from Maggie Cole, and the first book in that series is Ruthless Stranger, which is one of my favourites of the series as well. So this one is a 10-book series, which does sound like quite an investment. If you've not read any of these and you think there's 10 books for you to get through, that does seem pretty daunting, and I do appreciate that. But honestly, it's absolutely worth your time to get through these. All of these, again, were 4 or 5-star reads for me, and again, I have picked up the audiobooks and I'm working my way through. I'm actually up to books, I've just completed book 6 in the series. We'll be moving on to book 7 shortly. So for this one, it's split into 2 parts. So the first 5 books are about the Ivanov family, and they are Russians. And we have Ruthless Stranger, Broken Fighter, Cruel Enforcer, Vicious Protector, and Savage Tracker. And then it switches to the Irish Mafia, all still interconnected, but we have Unchosen Ruler, Perfect Sinner, Brutal Defender, Deviant Hacker, and then Relentless Hunter. So I'm just going to put this down because my arm is aching. But these are a Mafia romance. You do have to read them in order. They're completely interconnected. It takes place in Chicago, and like I say, with the Russian and Irish Mafia. Ruthless Stranger is one of my favourites because I absolutely love Maxim, the hero. So the plot and storyline itself is not as detailed and as complex as some of the others as we move through the series, and the storyline and the backstory and everything does absolutely get fantastic, gripping on the edge of you, so you need to learn more. But for me, I absolutely love the hero in this one. Maxim is my favourite and will remain my favourite. So it is my favourite book to read, and also the couple, Maxim and Aspen's heroine, they actually meet in Las Vegas and kind of have a 2-night stand and go their separate ways, and so I think the beginning of this book is absolutely brilliant as well. Now, going into this one, I thought it was fantastic because it ends on a fantastic cliffhanger, so much so that you absolutely have to dive straight into the next book. But what I will say with Maggie Cole is, if you've never read hers, what she tends to do is all of her books span a specific timeline, and each book kind of overlaps. So what you end up seeing is each couple, and the storyline is, or the timeline almost gets repeated again, but from the perspective of that new couple. But each time you kind of get a bit more. So you start and the book ends, and then the next book starts almost where the last book started, and then it will take you a little bit further. So each time you read something, you take a little bit further. So this means by the time you get to the last book in the series, which is Relentless Hunter, you get the whole picture. So it's not until book 10 that you understand everything that's happened. You get pieces in here and there, you're starting to piece it all together, but we're really building up to figuring everything out, and in book 10 everything gets answered. All the questions that you ever had, Maggie Cole answers. And also I really enjoyed it because it goes right back to way before even the start of book 1, follows all the way through, and then goes beyond the end of the book 9, and so you see the entire timeline span, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And like I say, it is 10 books. It's quite an investment in time, but I would highly recommend, honestly, if you love a Mafia romance, you won't go wrong with these books. So then the next series I want to recommend is The Horde Kings of Dakkar by Zoey Draven. This is a 6-book series, and again, all of the books in this series are either 4 or 5-star books for me. This is slightly different. It's a sci-fi / alien romance series, and the heroes in this one are all Horde Kings from a planet called Dakkar, and they are kind of like, you know, nomadic warrior barbarian style hordes that kind of roam the plains, the land on this planet, and protect it basically. So they're the kind of land protectors. Now on this planet you do have humans, but they are kind of like refugees, and they don't have the same rights as the natives on this planet, and so they're kept in kind of like human communities, and these human communities are not doing so well because they're not allowed to farm the land, they're not allowed to kill creatures, they're not allowed to set fire to anything, and so they are not doing too well. However, each of the Horde Kings in this series ends up with a human woman as their partner, wife, fated mate. You do need to read these books in order because the backstory and the plot and everything, they completely interconnect with each other, and you learn a little bit more about what's going on with the planet. There's kind of a shared enemy that they're all fighting against, and basically how they win that over. So the books in this series are Captive of the Horde King, Claimed by the Horde King, Madness of the Horde King, Broken by the Horde King, Taken by the Horde King, and Throne of the Horde King. Now my favourite book by far is the Broken by the Horde King. It's book 4 in the series. I love this book from start to finish. It gave me all of the feelings that I wanted to have. The hero and heroine in this one were sort of childhood sweethearts. The Horde King broke her heart. She was absolutely devastated and distraught. He's gone on to become a Horde King, and he's come back to the village because he needs a healer, and he comes to ask her if she'll be a healer in his horde. And she agrees to do that just for the season. And of course, while they're back together, they kind of talk about what happened in the past, figure out what went wrong, and kind of get closer together in their relationship. I just absolutely love this one. The emotions were real, they were raw. The pining from both of the characters was absolutely fantastic, and it was so satisfying when we finally got to the end and they got their happy ever after. So this whole series is really great, like I said, but book 4 was the standout for me. So the next series I want to recommend is the Stay a Spell series by Juliette Cross, and this is a 6-book series. It's a sort of paranormal romance series set in New Orleans, and it very much focuses on or features witches, werewolves, vampires, and grims. I rated the books in this series between 3 and 5 stars. There was just one 3-star read for me in this series, but the others were 4 and 5-star reads. Still would highly recommend. So the books in this series are Wolf Gone Wild, Don't Hex and Drive, Witches Get Stitches, Always Practice Safe Hex, Rest in Witch Face, and Grim and Bear It. And my favourite was Rest in Witch Face, which was book 5 in the series. They're cosy paranormal romances. It does, you know, involve, like I say, witches and werewolves and grims, and there is an element of magic and mystery and, you know, paranormal activity going on. But it really focuses very much on family, found family, being together as a community. And each of the books focuses on a different Savoy sisters, and the Savoy sisters are basically witches in New Orleans. Their eldest sister Jules is the head of the coven and basically like in charge of the supernaturals in New Orleans. And so each of the Savoy sisters kind of gets their own books, and they get their heroes. And their heroes are either, so 2 of them get vampires, 2 of them get werewolves, and 2 of them get grims. And we just see how their community changes and develops as a result of the relationships that they have with each other. And so there's some really, again, this is a very interconnected series. I would recommend reading them all in order because we learn things about the werewolves. They're kind of second-class citizens within the supernatural community. And after book 1, which features Matteo as the kind of werewolf who needs the help of Evie, who's one of the Savoir sisters, they start to realise that actually werewolves may not be as bad as they think they are, and Jules really starts a campaign to get them equal rights and equal access in the paranormal community. So it isn't overly political though, but it is a great story. Like I say, it's like, for me, it's very much a cozy paranormal, a sense of family. It's very sweet and endearing, and there are moments of, you know, danger and risk, I guess, but overall it's just very, very light, fun, cozy, warm. So it's a really, really nice series to read if you just want to curl up with a good book, glass of wine, a nice blanket. It's the series for you. Now, like I say, Rest in Witchface was my absolute favourite. This was book 5 in the series, and this follows Jules and Reuben, and Reuben's head of the vampires in New Orleans, and their relationship has been brewing for all of the books. So by the time we get to Jules and Reuben's story, we're absolutely begging to find out what's gone on between them, why they're not together, and watching them get together. And so it was a perfect balance for me of the coziness and the family feeling that I've already described, but also this one was probably the most dramatic, the one with the most amount of danger, but also then some of the things that I like in romance novels where they went on a road trip together, they were in close proximity together, and yeah, there was just some great chemistry between them as a couple. So my favourite of the series, but all of them are absolutely fantastic. And in fact, I've just finished Grim and Bear, which was the last one in the series, and so I'm still very much feeling very cosy and warm about the whole series as a whole. So next I want to recommend the Rollin series by Emilia Finn. Now this is a 6-book series, and all of these books again were 4 or 5 stars. And this is an MMA fighter romance series. It's set around the Rollin gym, which is owned by the McQuaid brothers, who are the kind of the main heroes of this story, and their gym. And they're also world champions. So the eldest brother, Bobby McQuaid, he is a MMA world champion fighter, and they've got their gym where they train other people to be championship fighters as well. And so some of the brothers are also champions, but in different weight categories. Now, the first 2 books in this series do focus on Bobby. He's the eldest brother, and it's a duet. So the first 2 do need to read together. So that's Finding Home and Finding Victory. And then each of the other books is about a different member of the family. And you've got Finding Forever, Finding Peace, Finding Redemption, and Finding Hope. Again, I love this. It's sort of set in a small town. It very much revolves around the gym. Each of these, the heroes in this one are very possessive, protective of their heroines, and there is a little bit of danger. So generally the third act breakups or the third act conflict in these books is where the heroine is in some sort of danger and the hero has to go and save the heroine in some way. Now, my favourite in the series is book 3, which is Finding Forever, and this focuses on Jimmy and Izzy. Now, Jimmy is the youngest McQuaid brother. Everyone thinks he's a bit of a ladies' man. He is brilliant at what he does, great fighter, very attractive man, lots of women wanting to be with him. Everyone thinks he's a bit of a player, a bit of a rogue, a bit of a ladies' man. But he has been in love with Izzy since they were kids. So he grew up with Izzy. He has loved her since he first met her when she was just a very young girl and he was a very young boy, and has been in love with her ever since. And the issue is though that her brother is very, very close with the family, John, and Jimmy is scared to basically say how he feels about Izzy because he thinks John won't approve, but also he's not sure that Izzy returns his affections, and he doesn't want to say anything and therefore spoil their friendship because they're also best friends. Now, because of this miscommunication, they don't get together straight away, And Izzy, in fact, ends up having an affair with another man who turns out to be married. And when she finds out that she's pregnant and tells him, that's when everything comes to a bit of a head. So then she has to go to her family and tell her family that she's pregnant and that the father of her child doesn't want anything to do with her. But this is a double whammy because Jimmy has no idea that she's been with another man. He's been saving himself and is a virgin because he wants to be with her and is in love with her. And he's distraught because she didn't wait for him and now she's pregnant with another man's child. So heartbreaking. So this book is just like Emilia Finn just gets you around the throat and squeezes, gets you around the heart and squeezes. It was so heartbreaking and raw and real, and you could really sense how devastated Jimmy was. But Izzy was equally as devastated because she knew how much she'd hurt Jimmy. But despite him really struggling to come to terms with what's happened, ultimately she's still his best friend. He very much steps up to the plate and supports her through her pregnancy. And I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it is absolutely worth reading. And this whole series, I think, is, you know, very emotional and really well written from Emilia because, like I say, she really grabs you around the heart and squeezes. So then on to something slightly different, and I've got the Alpha Compound series by Anna Fiore. And this is a 5-book series, and it is a dystopian Omegaverse romance series. Each of the books in this one as well, I rated 4 or 5 stars. And the books in this one are The Alpha Awakens, Wake Up Alpha, Wide Awake, Sleepwalk, and Awake at Last. Now, I saw this one on Facebook. It was advertised on a Facebook group that I was following, and I'd never heard of Anna Fiore before. And actually, when I looked into it, at the time I read the first book, The Alpha Awakens, it was actually her debut novel, and she'd not written anything else at all. But I saw it really intrigued me, and not only was this my first Anna Fiore read, it was also my very first Omegaverse read. I'd not read any Omegaverse before I picked this one up, and I absolutely loved it. This is set in a dystopian future where there has been some sort of virus that has transformed some men into alphas. Now, when they first sort of transition to become alphas, they go into this kind of wildling phase where they appear to be very dangerous and uncontrolled. And so in the early days when this virus was first happening, they thought that the alphas were a real threat, and the government rounded as many of them up as they could. Some of them were killed, some of them were captured, some of them have been experimented on, and others fled. So that we have a group of alphas who have kind of fled, and they're living in remote places in North America and starting to gather together in communities. So this is called the Alpha Compound because we have in this a group of alphas that have grouped together, formed their own community, and now live in the Alpha Compound. And what we know is that when alphas form into groups, they are usually headed up by an alpha of alphas. So the alpha of the pack, who's basically going to be in charge and kind of lead the others. And then the other alphas in this group have designations. So some of them are enforcers, some of them are strategists, some of them are spirits, some of them are healers, and they've basically all got their own designation within the pack, their own place within this alpha pack. Now, this very first book, The Alpha Awakens, starts where one of the alphas transitioned. He went through his wildling phase, but he keeps going back into this wildling phase. So this is Samuel. Now, he's actually the hero of book 2, but we know that Samuel is somehow not able to control his wildling phase, and he'll go into these kind of like strange trances, and he'll escape into the city, and he appears to be stalking someone, but we don't know who he's stalking or why. But she lives in the same apartment block as the heroine from the first book, who happens to be a journalist. And Orion obviously gets Samuel, he takes him back to the compound, everything's okay, but he gets a whiff of this journalist and he's completely intrigued and kind of can't help himself but go back and find her. And they have this interesting meet cute. He goes to her apartment, but she gets scared and he kind of leaves. But because he knows that she's a journalist, they end up inviting her to come and be at the compound, stay with them at the compound so that she can learn about the alphas, find out more about them, discover that they're not, you know, violent and bad that everyone thinks they are, and that she will then write her stories, spread the word, and try and get the government and the politicians and everything to change their mind about the alphas and let them reintegrate back into society. So this is where we start book 1. And because she's a journalist and because we're learning about this world, there's so many new things to be discovered. And like I say, it was my first Omegaverse. There was some things in there that I'd not encountered before. I didn't know what was going on. But Anna Fiore did a great job in kind of building suspense and intrigue, and as alongside the romance, we kind of like, what is wrong with Samuel? Why is he out? Who is he trying to stalk? There is a scientist at the compound who is trying to help them, but we don't know who this scientist is. He appears to, you know, there's something not quite right about him. Is he a baddie? Is he working with the government? Is he trying to find out more information? And there's also kind of a baddie alpha pack who live in the sewers in the city, who have stolen some women. And so we're like, well, who are these people? Why have they stolen these women? Where have they taken them? So overall, like I say, I absolutely love Anna Fiore's writing. I love this version of the Omegaverse. This series absolutely definitely got me intrigued and hooked, and I wanted to read more. Now this was a series that I personally couldn't binge because, like I say, the very first time I picked up the first book, it was a brand new book for Anna Fiore. I had to wait a couple of months till the second book came out, but you absolutely have to believe that every time a new book came out, I picked it up and read it because it was that good. And if it was me reading them now, I would have definitely binged them one after the other to get to the end. Okay, so the final series I want to recommend today is Civil Corruption by Jessica Prince. This is a 4-book series. All of these books were a 4-star, and it is a rockstar romance series. So Civil Corruption is the name of the band. There are 4 band members: the lead singer, lead guitarist, bass guitarist and drummer. And the books are Corrupt, Defile, Consume and Ravage. I read these books originally a couple of years ago, but I've recently gone back and reread the audiobooks for these, and I absolutely love them. Where I've had favourites in other series, I honestly can't choose between these books. I love each of the heroes on their own merits. They are all as good as each other. I would absolutely date any of these guys from this band. The first book, Corrupt, really kicks off the series though, and from there we learn a lot more. So the very first book is about Garrett. He's the drummer. He's having a party at his house. This girl comes to his house. She doesn't know who he is. They have a really long conversation. They spend the night together, and the next morning she gets thrown out of his house and treated like a bit of a groupie. She goes away, and a couple of months later she realises she's pregnant. She tries to get hold of Garrett to let him know that he's going to be a father, but at first his manager, his assistant, his lawyer doesn't really believe her, and eventually when she has a paternity test, he believes that the child is his, and they then form this kind of like very difficult relationship because she resents him very much for the fact that she was kicked out the following morning, the fact that she struggles so hard for him to believe that the child is his, and she is not asking for any money from him. All she wants is for him to be a good dad to her daughter, and to be quite honest, in the first couple of years is a complete and utter a-hole. But things start to change, and he starts to realise that he needs to spend more time with his daughter, and as he does so, he spends more time with her, and their relationship very much goes from there. But through the first book, we learn more about the other band members. We come to love them all. They've got their own, they've got their own personal issues to deal with. And I really liked the balance between the fact that they're all in a rock band and when they're away on tour, and what happens, like I say, with their manager and their personal assistant, and what happens with their music and stuff when they're on tour, but also what goes on in their personal lives as well. So yeah, a highly bingeable series. Highly recommend if you like a rock star romance. And in fact, Jessica Prince does some really good small town romances as well, and I could easily have recommended a couple of her other series that she's got as well, and I may do in the future. So anyway, there you have it. They're all of the series that I think are completely bingeable and would highly recommend. Something for everyone, a bit of a megaverse, a bit of sci-fi, a bit of paranormal, some rockstar stuff, and also some Mafia books as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Comment if you have read any of these series and let me know which is your favourite in the series. And if you want to see more content from me, remember to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And some of the other heroines in the other books are related to the heroine from the first book in some way, and so yeah, it starts very much no, they're not though, are they? Slash, yeah, bit of a groupie. This lady is a journalist, so the first lady is a journalist, the first heroine is a journalist, and Ryan, should I just start again from the beginning? Because the people at large very much believe that I've said all of that wrong. She's not a nurse. Okay, so the next series I want to recommend is the Stay a Spell series. I can't talk today. Now this one is a 10-book series, so that sounds, just bit my tongue when I said 10. Her ex-fiance stole some Mafia. And in this one, this is the first book, this is Ruthless. And today I'm going to be sharing some of my favourite. And today I'm going to be sharing some of my favourite bingeable romance series with you.